Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the Maiden Soul Leadership Conclave in Delhi, says India is emerging as a global power and needs good leaders. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar meets his Chinese counterpart in Johannesburg, reviews developments in bilateral relationship. Discussion also held on management of peace and tranquility in border areas. Campaigning is in final stages in Germany as it heads to elections on Sunday. The latest polls show mainstream parties losing steam, far right and far left gaining ground. Israel simmers over the Hamas failing to release the remains of Shiri Bibas as agreed. Its armed wing named 6 more hostages to be freed on Saturday. And US envoy Keith Kellogg dubs Zelensky courageous and says he had extensive and positive discussions with him during his Kyiv visit, despite the Ukrainian president's war of words with Donald Trump. First up, the School of Ultimate Leadership or SOUL, a brainchild of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is set to open its doors in Ahmedabad or close to Ahmedabad in Gandhinagar by June 2027. It's a unique private institution promoted by leading industrialists to shape future leaders. The first edition of SOUL Leadership Conclave was inaugurated at Bharat Mandapam in New Delhi by Prime Minister Modi and Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Togbe. Take a look at this report.
The vision of SOUL, an initiative taken by like-minded private individuals, was first envisioned by Prime Minister Modi in 2012. Now, with support of like-minded industry leaders, it's set to become a reality. Sudhir Mehta of Torrid Group, Uday Kotak of Kotak Mahindra Group, Sajjan Jindal and others are among 6 promoters driving this ambitious project forward.
आने वाले समय में लीडरशिप सिर्फ पावर तक सीमित नहीं होगी। लीडरशिप के रोल्स में वही होगा जो इनोवेशन और इम्पैक्ट की कैपेबिलिटीज हो। देश के इंडिविजुअल्स को इस नीड के हिसाब से इमर्ज होना पड़ेगा। सॉल्व इन इंडिविजुअल्स में क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग, रिस्क टेकिंग और सॉल्यूशन ड्रिवन माइंडसेट डेवलप करने वाला इंस्टीट्यूशन होगा। आने वाले समय में इस संस्थान से ऐसे लीडर्स निकलेंगे जो डिसरप्टिव चेंजेस के बीच काम करने को तैयार होंगे।
The campus, once completed, will be spread over 22 acres near Gandhinagar's Gift City. The SOUL campus will be ready by June of 2027, offering leadership courses from 6 months to a year. Prime Minister Modi, while inaugurating the conclave, said this institute will churn out global leaders. Workshops for government employees and panchayat leaders across the country are also planned, aiming to strengthen leadership at the grassroots level.
द स्कूल ऑफ अल्टीमेट लीडरशिप की स्थापना विकसित भारत की विकास यात्रा में एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण और बहुत बड़ा कदम है। इस संस्थान के नाम में ही सौल है ऐसा नहीं है। ये भारत की सोशल लाइफ की सॉल बनने वाला है और हम लोग जिससे भली भांति परिचित है, बार बार सुनने को मिलता है, आत्मा। अगर इस सॉल को उस भाव से देखें तो ये आत्मा की अनुभूति कराता है।
The first Seoul Leadership Conclave was held on Friday, graced by Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister of Bhutan, Shering Tobgay. The two-day event brings together industry leaders, union ministers, and aspiring leaders from all corners of India.
यह आदरसारान मौका है, वह इसलिए कि विश्व के महान नेता आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी से ही नेतृत्व का पाठ पढ़ूंगा। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, मेरे बड़े भाई, आपने अपनी बुद्धिमानी, साहस और करुणा से भरे नेतृत्व से भारत को केवल 10 ही वर्षों में प्रगति की पथ पर अग्रसर किया है।
Young delegates here, participating from across India, believe Seoul is a game changer in leadership development with the potential to empower the next generation of political and industrial figures. From New Delhi, Dibyendra Mondol's report for DD India.
And we'll return to this story with a special guest a little later in the show. But let's move on for the time being. Foreign ministers from G20's leading economies are meeting in South Africa's Johannesburg. Despite common interests, the group remains divided on critical issues such as the Russia-Ukraine conflict and climate change. Amid these developments, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has assured India's support for South Africa's G20 priorities. DD India's Rahul Upadhyay has more.
South Africa is hosting the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is on a 2-day visit to South Africa to participate in the G20 meet, assured India's support for South Africa's G20 priorities. Delivering his remarks during the session on G20 objectives in 2025, Johannesburg, Jaishankar said, "We are supportive of the priorities of the South African presidency. They gel well with what India has advocated both nationally as well as during its own G20 presidency. On international disaster response, we support strong frameworks for preparedness, emergency response, recovery and reconstruction. India initiated the Coalition of Disaster Resilient Infrastructure in 2019. On financing a just energy transition, India has always believed that it must be affordable and equitable while considering the growth imperatives and differentiated responsibilities of developing countries." On the sidelines of the G20 foreign ministers meet, Jaishankar met his counterparts from other countries. Jaishankar met his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. Both leaders highlighted the importance of cooperation between the two countries in preserving and protecting a multilateral body like the G20.
External Affairs Minister and Chinese Foreign Minister, His Excellency Wang Yi, met on the sidelines of G20. The meeting lasted for about 30 minutes. The two ministers reviewed developments in our bilateral relationship since their last meeting in November. Specifically, the management of peace and tranquility in border areas, Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resumption, trans-border rivers, flight connectivity, and travel facilitation were discussed. There was also an exchange of views on G20 and SCO.
Later, he also held a trilateral meeting with foreign ministers of Australia and France. Jaishankar also met with the foreign minister Ahmed Attaf of Algeria. Discussion was held on partnership and cooperation in multilateral arena. Developments in West Asia also came up in their discussion. Jaishankar also met with the foreign minister of Ireland, Simon Harris. South Africa will hold the G20 presidency from the 1st of December 2024 to the 30th of November 2025. To tackle the global poly crisis, South Africa has embraced the theme Solidarity, Equality, Sustainability for its G20 presidency. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
And his report by DD India's Nazneen Ismail from Johannesburg on India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar meeting with the Chinese counterpart Wang Yi in South Africa.
Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar held a bilateral meeting with his Chinese counterpart Minister Wang Yi. During the meeting, Dr. Jaishankar emphasized that in a polarized global landscape, both India and China have worked diligently to preserve and protect the G20 as a key international institution. He noted that this collaborative effort highlights the significance of international cooperation in addressing global challenges.
I'm very glad we could meet today on the sidelines of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. Since our last meeting in Rio during the G20 summit in November 2024, there have been some notable developments. Our NSA and Foreign Secretary have visited China, and there have been discussions about various aspects of our relationship. These have included management of peace and tranquility in the border areas, as well as other dimensions of our ties. I'm glad today to have a further exchange of views.
In our bilateral relationship, the most important thing last year is the summit meeting between President Xi and Prime Minister Modi in Kazan. Our leaders set out the overall direction of improving this relationship, and our leaders reaffirmed that China and India, as two Asian civilizations and as neighbors, should engage in mutually beneficial cooperation.
G20 meetings shall continue for the rest of the year, with the finance ministers gathering in the mother city Cape Town next week. I'm Nazneen for DD India, Johannesburg, South Africa.
Now, in an ongoing ceasefire deal with Israel, the Hamas released name of 6 hostages on Friday. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited northern West Bank and ordered the army to intensify its operations following explosions in 3 buses. The Israeli army accused Hamas of a brazen violation of the agreement by placing the body of a Gazanese woman in the coffin instead of Shiri Bibas.
Recent developments surrounding the return of bodies by Hamas have sparked outrage in Israel, raising questions over the fragile ceasefire agreement. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned on Friday that Israel would make Hamas pay for failing to release the body of hostage Shiri Bibas as agreed.
Today is a tragic day. It's a day of boundless sorrow, of indescribable pain. 4-year-old Ariel Bibas, his baby brother, 1-year-old Kfir, and 84-year-old Oded Lifshitz were brutally murdered by Hamas savages. Their bodies returned home to a nation in mourning, a nation that will never forget and never forgive the evil that cut down these beautiful souls.
On Thursday, Palestinian armed groups had handed over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages to the Red Cross team in Khan Yunis. However, the Israeli military identified 3 bodies but said the one of the 4 bodies was not that of hostage Shiri Bibas. In response, Hamas said it would look into the possibility of an error or that human remains were mixed due to Israeli airstrikes. The development also raised concerns in other parts of the world. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz urged Hamas to return Israeli hostage Shiri Bibas's body, and Argentina announced 2 days of national mourning for Bibas brothers. Also on Friday, Hamas has named 6 Israeli hostages who are set to be released on Saturday, while Israel is expected to release more than 600 Palestinian prisoners as part of the ceasefire agreement. In West Bank, Prime Minister Netanyahu ordered Israel's military to conduct an operation after a series of explosions.
I want to send a clear message here to the terrorists and their handlers. The serious terror attack attempts yesterday against the civilian population will not deter us. We are at war with extreme Islamic terrorism, and we will win here in Gaza and everywhere, and we will destroy the Hamas kidnappers and the murderers of babies.
Israeli Prime Minister's order came after a series of explosions on 3 parked buses that rattled central Israel. However, no casualties were reported. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the explosions. With Aman Kumar Himanshu, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Vladimir Putin says Russian producers must get preferential terms if foreign firms return to his country. Chinese nationals from Myanmar scan centers fly home from Thailand.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, the rift between Ukraine and the US is deepening over a controversial minerals deal. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and former US President Donald Trump, Donald Trump have been exchanging sharp words as Washington pressures Kyiv to sign a critical minerals agreement in return for wartime aid. But despite tensions, Zelensky met with US envoy Keith Kellogg, with both sides calling the talks positive. Take a look.
War of words continues between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Donald Trump. But on Friday, Zelensky appeared to soften his stance, striking a more conciliatory tone after meeting with US envoy Keith Kellogg. Zelensky said the talks restore hope for an agreement with Washington.
Our talks restore hope. We need strong agreements with America, agreements that will really work. I gave instruction to work fast and very much even-handedly. Economic interest and security interests should always go hand in hand, and the details of the agreement are important.
The rift had intensified further after US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had said US President Trump is very frustrated with Zelensky. He also said Ukraine must return to negotiations and agree to deal that would grant the US access to critical resources.
So some of the rhetoric coming out of Kyiv, frankly, and insults to President Trump were unacceptable. He needs to come back to the table, and we're going to continue to have discussions about where that deal is going.
This came after Zelensky on Friday rejected US demands for $500 billion worth of Ukraine's mineral wealth in repayment for military aid, arguing that Washington has provided nowhere near that amount in assistance. So what's at stake? Ukraine holds about 5% of world's total reserves of rare earth elements. It also has largely untapped reserves of minerals like tantalum, beryllium and niobium. In total, Ukrainian officials estimate the country is sitting on more than 2.6 billion tons of these critical minerals. The country also has significant reserves of other critical minerals like titanium and lithium. Despite the ongoing dispute, a senior Ukrainian official confirmed on Friday that negotiations over a potential US minerals agreement are still in progress. Meanwhile, Poland's President Andrzej Duda has urged Zelensky to maintain constructive cooperation with Trump. Meanwhile, Russian news agency on Friday reported that Russia and the United States have made no progress on the venue for a meeting between President Putin and Trump. Both the countries have previously mentioned Saudi Arabia as a possible summit host. Bureau Report, DD India.
Germany heads to snap polls on Sunday after the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition. With 4 key contenders in the race, the outcome will determine Germany's fate and influence Europe's political direction. Take a look at this report.
Germany is set to hold a snap national election on Sunday, February 23rd, following the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's three-way coalition. The election has triggered extensive debates across the country on topics ranging from the economy and migration to Germany's role in the European Union. With 4 major contenders vying for the chancellorship, the results will not only determine Germany's future, but also impact the broader European landscape. First up, Friedrich Merz. A seasoned politician, Merz is widely expected to become Germany's next chancellor. Leading the conservative CDU-CSU alliance, Merz is a known advocate for tax cuts and deregulation. His campaign focuses on revitalizing the economy while balancing the conservative base with a push to win back votes from the far-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD. Next, Alice Weidel of the far-right AfD. Weidel's candidacy has shaken Germany's political dynamics. An economist by training, fluent in Mandarin, Weidel presents a modern face for a party often criticized for its far-right views. Under her leadership, the AfD has gained substantial support by focusing on strict immigration policies and calling for the tighter border controls. Olaf Scholz, of course the incumbent chancellor from the Social Democratic Party, or SPD, is seeking a second term. However, persistent infighting within the coalition and a struggling economy have weakened his position, with polls showing the SPD trailing behind the Conservative and the AfD. Rounding up the list is Robert Habeck of the Greens. Currently serving as Germany's Vice Chancellor and Economy Minister, Habeck gained popularity by leading the Greens through a successful period of growth. However, his policies on transitioning from fossil fuels to greener alternatives have drawn mixed reactions. Now, as Germany prepares to vote, the world is watching. The key issues dominating the elections include Germany's approach to the war in Ukraine, economic recovery and migration. With Nancy Baloda, Amit Mukherjee for DD India.
Now the vote is very different from the last time. This time around, as right-wing parties have climbed up in opinion polls. What are some of the main concerns for German citizens, and what are businesses or the markets expecting? For more on this, we're joined by DW's Wada Imran from Berlin. Thanks, Wada, and good evening from Delhi. Give us the latest. What are you expecting come Sunday and beyond?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, this is a big election for Germany as the mainstream parties like the CDU, which was Angela Merkel's party, and the SPD, which is current Chancellor Olaf Scholz's party, and the Greens race to secure a spot at the top. Far-right AfD is polling currently as number 2. So Germans will head to the polls on Sunday to vote, and we expect clarity by Monday itself. It seems the most likely outcome will be another tough coalition here in Germany. All signs and surveys are pointing to a conservative-led coalition, which will see the CDU on top, but needing the support of others to form a proper government. This will be a big task because these big parties disagree on some of the most fundamental aspects, like the debate yesterday, which was about whether combustion engine cars should be banned or not. None of these parties want to work with the far-right AfD. So for now, it seems the far-right party will not be making the government. But we will definitely see negotiations and talks, which might take months to decide. The last time it took 3 months from the vote to a coalition to be formed and for Olaf Scholz to be named Chancellor.
Right. Now, Wada, let's talk about the voters. What are the priorities of the citizens? What are they looking for in the next government?
Yes, there's a long list of priorities, but the economy has been a top concern. According to a new survey, voters in February prioritized security and peace as their biggest concern ahead of going to the polls. The economy was a very close second, and social justice and equality was third. Migration is still a very hot topic here, but I think recent geopolitical events like US President's comments on Ukraine, potential threats from Russia have reactivated security concerns. But if we go and look into the nitty-gritty, some of my colleagues have been traveling around Germany and spoke to families in the eastern state of Thuringia, for example, and people there are still very much concerned about working reduced hours on reduced pay. There are job cuts even for the most skilled educated engineers. There is little to no support for single parents. So these are some of the very important concerns that we've been hearing out of the eastern part of the country. Over in Munich, the concerns range from housing concerns because of very high prices for apartments, lack of investments in infrastructure, and these seem to be the things that people there are going to vote off of. Either way, everyone across the country agrees that the salaries are not enough to cover the high cost of living. So regular voters are hoping for some relief from the next government on these crucial areas of concern.
So plenty of discontent to vent out at the polls. Thank you for joining us for the moment from Berlin, Varda, Islam. Now, Russia's President Vladimir Putin on Friday said that Russian manufacturers should get preferential terms if foreign firms return to the Russian market. While addressing the technology conference in Moscow, Putin asked the officials to consider forms of regulation that would provide advantages to national producers. Further, Putin also mentioned to do this within the framework of the World Trade Organization's rules.
I asked the government to think about how we can regulate the interaction of our enterprises and the enterprises of our competitors in order to provide national producers with certain advantage. And we can accordingly regulate the return of our market of those who want return, creating and leaving advantages for our own producers. We must do this subtly, carefully, but it is necessary to do this.
Now, Myanmar handed over 300 Chinese scam center workers to be repatriated through Thailand on Friday as authorities intensified a crackdown on the illegal operations. Thousands of foreigners are expected to be sent home after scam compounds in Myanmar over the coming weeks, with the first batch already flown out on Thursday. The compounds are run by criminal gangs and staffed by foreigners, many of whom say they were trafficked and forced to swindle people around the world in protracted internet scams. Myanmar's junta said in a statement that a second group of 300 Chinese nationals was handed over on Friday via the Thailand-Myanmar Friendship Bridge at the Thai border town of Mae Sot. The statement also said that the junta has been working to identify, arrest and take action on foreigners who are involved in online scam centers and those who are behind it. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world. The Filipino police has arrested over 450 people in a raid on a suspected Chinese-run scam center in Manila. Authorities said the center targets victims in China and India with betting and investment scams. Among those detained were 137 Chinese nationals. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico has met Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk during his U.S. working trip. Fico praised the new U.S. administration for avoiding interference in other nations' affairs. Musk has been critical of U.S. aid, aligning with Fico's stance on foreign influence. French Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau raised concerns over rising juvenile violence in France. During a visit to Valence, he urged immediate action to tackle the trend of younger killers and victims. And still to come on DD India News Hour. We'll be speaking with our special guest on the launch of the School of Ultimate Leadership or SOUL by India's Prime Minister Modi in Delhi. And Prime Minister Modi has said that literature is a mirror as well as a guide for society as he inaugurated the 98th Akhil Bharatiya Marathi Sahitya Sammelan in New Delhi.
Timeless, boundless and infinite, the essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic, world's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. And before we go any further, another look at our top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the Maiden Soul Leadership Conclave in Delhi, says India is emerging as a global power and needs good leaders. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar meets his Chinese counterpart in Johannesburg, reviews developments in bilateral relations. Discussions also held on management of peace and tranquility in border areas. And campaigning is in final stages in Germany as it heads to polls on Sunday. The latest polls show mainstream parties losing steam, far right and far left gaining ground. Let's now take you back to one of our top stories where India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has launched the School of Ultimate Leadership or SOUL in the national capital at the first ever leadership conclave. We have Dr. Hasmukh Arya, Vice Chairman SOUL, to talk about it with us. Welcome to DD India, Dr. Arya, and good evening. Now, the name School of Ultimate Leadership itself speaks for itself, but tell us how it came about and how is it going so far? Prime Minister Modi had a role in its conception as well?
Yes, in fact, when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he had been talking about this. He wanted that in the country there should be a international level leadership institution which is based on the fundamental principles of Indian wisdom. And that's why the name Ultimate Leadership, ultimate suggests that kind of leadership which is putting oneself above the self and putting the interest of the country at the top. So that is why the name SOUL is actually acronym by him only.
All right. Now, we've heard of some leadership courses being offered in business schools till now, which are mostly meant for churning out corporate bosses. So how is SOUL going to be different?
Well, first of all, we make a distinction between management and leadership. Management is all about learning some tools and techniques to get things done, while leadership is developing a personal kind of a trait in a person. And that trait, we believe at SOUL, can be learned. It can be taught. And that's the philosophy behind this Leadership Institute. There is a complete difference between what management institutions teach and what SOUL is going to undertake. So here we have a desire to fill up the gap of good leaders in the country. We need leaders for every sector of the country. We need good leaders in social sector, education, health, and even in politics. So the idea is to sort of have some kind of systematic training being given at all levels, including to the aspiring young people who want to join politics.
All right. Now, what sort of values and what kind of pedagogy will drive the curriculum and courses at SOUL?
So, as of now, because we have just launched the institution today, and just before few days, the foundation stone of the building has been laid. It will take 2 years for the campus to come up. The campus is coming up at a place close to the gift city in Gandhinagar. And but till then, we would be starting with small training programs for 2 days or 1 week, in which we would be including some public policy personnel who are actually in the job. We will sort of try to train them. We will also have some social sector specialists, such as education specialists or health specialists, being given the training of leadership. And then we will also start with political leadership for the elected representatives of urban local bodies or the Jilla Panchayat. So they would be given some kind of a refresher training for a short duration. And once we have the campus ready, then we would like to admit regular batches of people starting from 3 months to 6 months or maybe a year also. And that we have yet to conceptualize how to sort of go about it, what kind of courses for which class of people, that we are yet to conceptualize.
I see. Now, does the broad leadership in India which exists now lack something, which is why you have SOUL coming up now? And if that is the case, how will SOUL improve or augment the quality of leadership in the country?
There is a complete shortage of leadership. We have got good vice chancellors, but they may not be having any formal training of leadership. And so as educational administrator, they may not do a good job. So we need that kind of a leadership training to be given to all sector specialists also. And plus, there is a general lack of commitment to the job. There is a general lack of even following simple principles. For example, leadership means if you promise to somebody, you have to deliver. Now that simple principle also is not being followed by many people who are in top position. So don't we need these values to be brought into the system? Don't we need people to be told about it? Yes, these are the basic values one has to follow in leadership. So that's what is the role of SOUL. We won't be able to cover everything, It's a private institution which is sponsored by some like-minded top industrialists. But point is key, we have to make a beginning somewhere.
Certainly. Now, Prime Minister Modi has given the nation the aspiration and a roadmap to become a developed nation by 2047 when it celebrates 100 years of independence. Now, to what extent can Seoul contribute to this effort?
Everything else will be in place, but unless the leadership is actually there, the country will not be able to reach that goal. And that's what the PM has been talking about it. He has his sight on everything. He's trying to muster policies, resources, everything together. But ultimately, it will boil down to leadership. And again, we have to not only give leadership training to the current generation, but we have to prepare future generations of leaders also. And that's where his aim is. And that's what we like about him, that he has been talking about it, he has been inspiring people to do things like this. So this is what is required for 2047.
And what sort of people will Seoul be looking for when it actually starts enrollments? What would be the age profile? What would be the qualifications or background?
So, as I told you, we have to conceptualize more detail. But yes, we would certainly have some training program of at least 3 months for young people, young educated people wanting to enter politics. They have to be oriented. They have to be taught some systematic things about constitution, laws, about the Indian democracy, about the role of executive and everything. And then they have to be taught certain values also. And those kind of training will be given by practical people who are in politics. And that will be the kind of more practical pedagogy rather than theoretical. There will be some amount of theory in terms of constitution, law, etc. But ultimately, the successful political people will only be able to guide them about how to enter politics, how to win elections, how to go about it. So that is what we will do. And among other programs, of course, we will have a lot of programs for social sector specialists.
All right. Dr. Hasmukh, thank you so much for joining us and talking about Seoul, and all the best for this very, very valuable enterprise built to cater to the future of the country, its future generations as well, in terms of emerging leadership. Thank you. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that language is the bearer of culture. Inaugurating the 98th Akhil Bharatiya Marathi Sahitya Sammelan in New Delhi, the Prime Minister highlighted that many saints of Maharashtra showed society a new direction through the Bhakti movement in the Marathi language. He added that the Marathi language and Marathi literature have performed a remarkable task of opening the doors of social liberation for the oppressed and deprived sections of society. He also pointed out that there's never been any enmity among Indian languages, rather they have enriched each other.
भारतीय भाषाओं में कभी कोई आपसी वैर नहीं रहा। भाषाओं ने हमेशा एक दूसरे को अपनाया है, एक दूसरे को समृद्ध किया है। साथियों, कई बार जब भाषा के नाम पर भेद डालने की कोशिश की जाते हैं, तो हमारी भाषाओं की साझी विरासत ही उसका सही जवाब देती है। इन भ्रमों से दूर रहकर भाषाओं को समृद्ध करना, उन्हें अपनाना, ये हम सबका सामूहिक दायित्व है। इसलिए आज हम देश की सभी भाषाओं को मेन स्ट्रीम लैंग्वेज के रूप में देख रहे हैं। हम मराठी समेत सभी प्रमुख भाषाओं में शिक्षा को बढ़ावा दे रहे हैं।
India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar attended the inaugural session of the 21st General Session of African Asian Rural Development Conference in New Delhi on Friday. And speaking at the event, the Vice President highlighted the steps taken by the Government of India to strengthen rural communities across the country. He also spoke about the steps taken by the government towards women empowerment, empowerment of underprivileged sections of society, and how India's push towards poverty elimination can be a model for the Global South.
India offers a perfect example how to leverage technology to empower people, to mitigate their suffering, to cut into corruption, to generate transparency, to generate accountability. And that is why in this country, I am sure people have the figure 1.5 billion people. Unity in diversity, very varied, but it was seamless service connectivity, service delivery. There are no long queues for services now. Every person seems to be empowered to get benefit of technology, even if he or she has to receive some assistance.
Now, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has greeted Prime Minister of Romania Marcel Ciolacu on Friday in Brussels. Von der Leyen and Ciolacu would discuss the renegotiation of Romania's National Recovery and Resilience Plan and the regional security situation, particularly in the context of ongoing negotiations to find a solution for ending the war in Ukraine. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson informed that authorities are investigating reports of a breach of an undersea cable in Sweden's exclusive economic zone on Friday. He also said that the government was being briefed and that damage to any undersea infrastructure was of particular concern amid the current security scenario. A Coast Guard vessel has also been sent to the scene of the island of Gotland. Referring to the recent Baltic Sea cable breach, the European Commission announced plans to propose boosting surveillance of undersea cables and establishing a fleet of vessels available to repair cables in emergencies on Friday. The announcement comes at a time when some European governments are concerned about multiple sabotage incidents of power cables, telecom links and gas pipelines. Pope Francis is showing improvement, is alert and is also doing some work. That's what the Vatican has said on Friday, as the 88-year-old pontiff began his 8th day in hospital battling pneumonia. The Pope is being treated at Rome's Gemelli Hospital, where he was admitted on the 14th of February after struggling with breathing difficulties for several days. Vatican spokesperson Matteo Bruni said in a brief update on Friday that the Pope had slept well overnight and was able to eat breakfast. Double pneumonia is a serious infection that can inflame and scar both lungs, making it difficult to breathe. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Tourism Malaysia participates in Tourism Fair South Asia's Travel and Tourism Exchange. Vintage car rally in India's capital leaves motor enthusiasts awestruck.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India has been honored with the Prince Michael Decade of Action Road Safety Award, the highest recognition in the field for its remarkable strides in improving vehicle safety over the past decade. The award was conferred at the 4th Ministerial Conference on Road Safety in Marrakesh, where global leaders gathered to strategize on cutting road fatalities by 50% by 2030. Minister of State for Road Transport and Highways Ajay Tamta received the award from WHO's Etienne Cruz. To support India's gaming industry, the Bharat Tech Triumph program has been launched under the Create in India Challenge Season 1, organized by the Interactive Entertainment and Innovation Council in collaboration with India's Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. The initiative aims to identify and showcase India's gaming talent on the international stage, strengthening the country's position in the global gaming market. India's gaming industry is experiencing rapid growth, particularly in digital and online gaming, making it one of the fastest expanding sectors in the media and entertainment landscape. The Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, that's TRAI, released recommendations on framework for service authorizations for provision of broadcasting services under the Telecommunications Act 2023 on Friday. The regulator released the recommendations on a unified framework for service authorizations for provision of broadcasting services under the new Telecommunications Act, which repeal the Telegraph Act. The recommendations aim to promote growth and enhance ease of doing business in the broadcasting sector. Tourism Malaysia is participating for the 21st time in one of India's largest tourism fairs, the South Asia Travel and Tourism Exchange, or SATE. This event is being held in New Delhi from the 9th to the 21st of February. Through this event, there is a continuous effort to maintain Malaysia as a preferred tourist destination in the minds of Indian travellers. Manish Bajpayee reports.
In an effort to elevate tourism to new heights, the South Asia Travel and Tourism Exchange, known as SATE, is being held at Yashobhumi in New Delhi. Stakeholders from several countries involved in tourism took part in the event. Tourism Malaysia intends to focus on unique approaches such as shopping, golfing, luxury tourism, soft tourism, theme parks and honeymoon packages to inspire the Global Visit 2026 campaign at this year's SATE. Consequently, Tourism Malaysia is also leveraging niche areas like MICE, which stands for Meetings, Incentives, Conferences and Exhibitions and Weddings. The Malaysian delegation is led by Ahmed Joharif Muhammad Ali, Director of the Tourism Malaysia New Delhi office, and includes 60 organizations.
Indian travelers, being among our most valued guests, will remain at the heart of our tourism initiatives. The Malaysian government prioritizes the safety, comfort and satisfaction of all tourists. We are dedicated to implementing policies that uphold the highest standards of hospitality and professionalism across our tourism sector.
Earlier this week, Tourism Malaysia launched the Visit Malaysia Year 2026 campaign at an event in New Delhi. This event was inaugurated by High Commissioner of Malaysia in India, Dato Muzaffar Shah Mustafa, and Director of Tourism Malaysia in Delhi, Ahmed Joharif Muhammad Ali.
In fact, this objective or these activities is the main objective to brand Malaysia as the tourist destination for the Indian travelers and to strengthen the ties between Malaysian industry and the Indian industry.
There has been an extraordinary surge in the footfall of Indian tourists to Malaysia. Between January and December 2024, more than 10 lakh Indian tourists visited Malaysia. This represents a 47% increase compared to 2019 and a 71.7% increase from 2023, indicating Malaysia's growing preference as a top destination among Indian travelers. India remains Malaysia's second largest tourism market for medium-haul travel after China, and Tourism Malaysia is committed to strengthening this relationship further. Manish Bajpayee's report for DD India.
Now, Delhi's motor enthusiasts were captivated at the 11th edition of the 21-gun salute Concours d'Elegance car show on the 21st of February. The event featured vintage cars from the late 19th century alongside premium modern electric vehicles. Classic scooters, motorbikes and iconic models like Rolls-Royce, Jaguar, Lincoln Continental and MG left the audience amazed. Organizers hope the event inspires younger generations to appreciate and restore vintage automobiles. And now it's time to get you some sporting updates as well. Now, Liverpool will face Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League last 16, When Liverpool won the Champions League in 2019, their campaign began against Paris Saint-Germain. The French side await once again more than 6 years on from a pair of tight-fought group stage clashes, and the Reds will hope a victory over PSG precedes another European trophy. Arsenal take on PSV Eindhoven and Aston Villa will play Club Brugge. Holders Real Madrid face local rivals Atletico Madrid, and Bayern Munich play Bayer Leverkusen in an all-Germany affair. Meanwhile, Barcelona will take on Benfica in the last 16 of the Champions League as well. The two-legged last 16 ties will be played on the 4th and 5th of next month and the 11th and 12th as well. Cricketing legends Sachin Tendulkar and Yuvraj Singh are set to reunite on the field after a decade, donning the iconic blues once again. The legendary duo will lead the India Masters against Sri Lanka in the highly anticipated opening clash of the inaugural International Masters League in Navi Mumbai on Saturday. Beginning the 22nd of this month, the inaugural IML T20 2025 features the return of iconic cricketers from 6 teams: India, Sri Lanka, Australia, England, West Indies and South Africa. The competition will be staged across Navi Mumbai, Vadodara and Raipur, with Raipur hosting the semi-finals and the final on the 16th of March. In tennis, world number 1 Jannik Sinner has been dropped from an exhibition event in Las Vegas next month, while he is serving a 3-month ban connected to a pair of failed doping tests. Replacing Sinner, Casper Ruud is now slated to join Alexander Zverev, Taylor Fritz and Tommy Paul on the 2nd of March as part of the MGM Rewards Slam at Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. The latest announcement of the switch has come on Thursday in a news release. Last weekend, Sinner accepted the punishment as part of a settlement with the World Anti-Doping Agency. Now, Jiri Leheka knocked off top-seeded Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz on Thursday to advance to the semi-finals of the Qatar Open in Doha. The 23-year-old Czech trailed 4-2 in the third set before rallying to win 6-3, 3-6, 6-4. Leheka struck 8 aces and converted 4 of 8 break chances to secure the first top-3 win of his career. Leheka will next face 8th-seeded Jack Draper of Great Britain, who rallied past Italy's Matteo Berrettini 4-6, 6-4 and 6-3. India's Consul General Prateek Mathur on Friday visited the Jing'an Temple, located in the heart of Shanghai, a prominent Buddhist temple in China and an oasis of serenity amidst the metropolitan hustle-bustle. Mathur offered prayers to the majestic 15-ton Buddha idol cast in silver and was received warmly by the abbot master Yayun of the temple. The temple has close links with India, which is also reflected in its architecture. As the Zhengfa Jeju Brahma block has its origins in India's national emblem, the Ashok Stamp, with the Xi'an Pagoda is inspired by architecture of Bodh Gaya. The Jing'an Temple, located in the heart of Shanghai, a prominent Buddhist temple in China and an oasis of serenity amidst metropolitan hustle-bustle. The temple has, as I mentioned, close links with India, which is also reflected in its architecture. The Zhengfu Jeju Brahma block has its origins in India's national emblem and Ashoka symbol. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.
Timeless, boundless and infinite, the essence of faith, the soul of Sanatan culture, from the sacred confluence of Prayag, where divinity descends to earth. Witness the grandeur, the devotion, the magic. World's largest cultural and spiritual gathering, with over 450 million devotees expected to attend. Mahakumbh, India's greatest festival of faith. Exclusively on DD India.
मिठाई तो हमारे जमाने में